Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for viewing my video. In this video I'm going to do the Beauty and Books tag. I was tagged in a video by Pat at Book Chat with Pat 8668. I'm just going to repeat what Pat said to properly credit the creators of this video. This tag was created by Ruben at To Readers It May Concern and Emily at the Linguist Library. There are 9 prompts to this tag. I will say that I had to put a little more thought into this tag than I frequently do, and I always have to put a lot of thought into them, but this one was kind of challenging to me, and possibly I bent the questions a little bit for my answers, but I did come up with answers for every prompt, and mostly I think in every one multiple answers. One thing I want to say too is because I have a lot of books that I mention here, I'm not going to insert the book graphics in this one because it would just take too long. There are a few books that I have physical copies of that I mention, and those books I will show. The first prompt is Beauty and Concept. The first book I'm going to choose for that is The Traveling Chronicles by Hiro Arikawa. In this book, a man and his cat travel all over Japan so he can meet up with people from his past. And I just think that's a beautiful concept. The second is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. This is a dark fantasy, but there is some beauty in it. The second prompt is Beauty in Opening Lines. And the first book I'm going to read an opening lines from is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Friday, August 24th, stoop sitting. The summer is made for stoop sitting, and since it's the last week before school starts, Harlem is opening its eyes to September. I scope out this block I've always called home. Watch the old church ladies, chandettas flapping against the pavement, their mouths letting loose a train of island Spanish as they spread, he said, she said. Pete Patote from down the block as he opens the fire hydrant, so little kids have a sprinkler to run through. Listen to honking cabs with bachetta blaring from open windows. Compete with basketballs echoing from Little Park. Laugh at the viejos, my father not included, finishing their dominoes tournament with hard claps and yells at Capishu. I just think that paints a picture of me, of a summer day in Harlem. The second book I'm going to read, the first line from, is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Ever since my mom died, I cry in H Mart. That's just something that, just one line, but I can really paints a picture for me. So I think that's a beautiful opening line. Actually, I realized looking back to The Poet X, I read more than one line, but an opening few lines, I guess. The third book I'm going to read an opening line from is This is Salvaged by Vauhini Vara. And because this is actually a collection of short stories, so I'm actually going to read the opening lines from one of the short stories. It's not actually the first one. It's from a short story called I, Buffalo. The event in question took place at the end of the summer. I don't recall which day. That summer the day failed to distinguish themselves from one another. Given that failure, I don't see why I should do the distinction for them. I'm going to tell you that this anonymous day opened warmly. I know this because I began the day on the bus and recall perching on the edge of the seat so that my thighs wouldn't stick to the plastic. I had woken early and, unable to sleep, decided to go to the park. Here's another opening paragraph, actually, that paints a picture for me. So I consider really opening lines, I guess, because it's more than one line. And the fourth book I'm going to read opening lines from is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Shadow is not at all happy with me. He lies by the fire while the chill wind rattles the door, tail inert, staring out from beneath that shaggy forelock of his with the sort of accusatory resignation peculiar to dogs, as if to say, Of all the stupid adventures you dragged me on, this will surely be the death of us. I fear I have to agree, though this makes me no less eager to begin my research. That just, I think, is a good way to introduce the story. The third prompt is beauty and character. The first character I'm going to select for this is Jacob in Soulmates by Susan Lee. Jacob is a K-drama star, an American actually who went to South Korea when he was in his mid-teens to train at an idol school. It's very successful, but he doesn't particularly enjoy it. There's a lot of pressure on him. And ultimately, I think the way he ends up handling it shows beauty and character. The second character I'm selecting is Miranda in Life as We Know It by Susan Pfeiffer. In this book, it's basically a post-apocalyptic novel, I think you'd say. The moon gets off its axis, and that creates all kinds of global catastrophes, volcanoes, earthquakes, etc., super cold winter. And Miranda's 16. She tells a story through diary entries, and she, her two brothers, her mother, and their cats, how they navigate this difficult situation. She shows a lot of beauty and character for a 16-year-old, the way she is able to do so. The fourth prompt is beauty amidst pain. For this, the first one I'm going to select is Satoru and the Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arikawa. I mentioned this book in one of the earlier prompts, but Satoru is going through a great deal of difficulty. I don't want to say what because that'd be a big spoiler, but he shows a lot of beauty, the way he navigates the difficult situation he's going through. The second is Theodore Finch and All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. Might be a bit of a controversial choice if you're familiar with the book because of what happens later in the book, but he is going through a lot of difficulty, mental illness, and the way he gets through it, at least most of the way through the book, shows a lot of beauty. The fifth prompt is beauty and incompleteness. The first book I'm going to choose is I Kiss Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. This book does have a good ending, but it's the kind of ending where you wish you knew, say, a year in the future or 5 years in the future, whatever, what happened with the characters, especially the two teenage characters. The second is The House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. In this book, there is a bit of a romantic spark between lead character Sam and the man who does their gardening. It doesn't come to anything, but it's the kind of thing that there's a beauty in the fact that the two of them don't get together, but it is incomplete, and it's another one where I kind of would wish that I would know if anything, the romance actually blossomed, or there was actually a romance in their future. The third book is The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. This ended with, it'd be a spoiler to give details, but it was a good ending, but it was another one of those that I wish that I knew what happened in the future. It didn't end, things weren't really fully resolved in it. And I know, like a lot of books, you would wish to know what the future of the characters was, but in these three books, I think there was a beauty in their completeness, but I also would like to know what their future held. The sixth prompt is Beauty and Place. I'm going to have a whole bunch of answers for this one. The first is Succulents and Spells, Wildflower No. 1 by Andy Buchanan. This book is set in New Zealand, and there's just a lot of beautiful scenery, vegetation in New Zealand that the characters are working in, doing stuff in. The second is The Music of Bees by Eileen Garvin. This is set in the Pacific Northwest. I can't remember the state. But they're kind of out in the country. There's a pond that people windsurf. There's a farm where the three principal characters raise bees. Just sounds like a beautiful area. The fourth is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. This is another book set in the Pacific Northwest. It's actually a real town, Forks. I think it's in Washington. It's another place that there's a lot of forested areas, a lot of beautiful areas. It is very overcast, which is the vampires in the story need overcast for a reason, which is pretty well known, but I won't say it because if you haven't read it, it's a bit of a spoiler, I suppose. The next book is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is a book that is set in a Norwegian town, which is actually a real town, small town, and there's just a lot of forest near where they are, and it sounds like somewhat foreboding, but a beautiful area too. The next is 5 Weeks in a Balloon by Jules Verne. In this story, there's a couple of men, might have been three, I can't remember for sure, but they were flying in a balloon over Africa. And this was a time in African history when there wasn't a lot of European explorers exploring the continent. There were some, but it was like a time when it was pretty much unspoiled. And just the idea of flying over a continent like that at that time, I think there would be a lot of beautiful vegetation and animals and stuff to view. The sixth is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. This book was set at a beach in Italy in the summer, and just the description of it and the villas and stuff like that, I think it would be a beautiful area. The next book is Funny Star by Emily Henry. This book was set on a coastal town in Lake Michigan. There was beaches, there was forested areas. It just sounded like a very beautiful location. The next book is A Psalm for the Wild Bill by Becky Chambers. This is another book. There was a lot of forested areas, verdant areas. In the story in the book, part of the planet had somewhat gone back to vegetation, gone wild. And the author does a great job just describing that. And I have another Emily Henry book, Happy Place. This book is set in a coastal town in Maine in the summer. And as one who actually, when I was a kid, my family did go on vacation on occasion in Maine. There was a lot of beautiful coastline in Maine, a lot of beautiful little towns. The next book is ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas. Yes, I'm specifically referring to the Fey world of it. There's a lot of darkness in that world, but there was a lot of beauty too, both in the vegetation and the dwelling and the art, things like that of the Fey. There was a lot of beauty amongst the darkness too. Next book is The Little Mermaid Against the Tide by J. Ellie. This book you have to accept there's beauty in underwater. Although there was a lot of danger for the underwater denizens, the mermaids, there was also a lot of beauty too. Next book is The Stranger by Albert Camus. Although I didn't particularly like the book, the author did a great job describing, say, summer days in Algeria. It was set in the mid part of the 20th century, and describing the beach, just things like that. I could really picture like the beauty of the days that he described. And the final book is Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. This book was set in Africa. It was after European countries were colonizing Africa, but there was a lot of wild areas. And just his description of a boat traveling up a river in the jungle. Can't remember if it was in the Congo or if the introduction said maybe it was the Congo without them saying it. But it was just like I could really feel like, almost like I was there by the descriptions of the author. So that was another beauty in place. The 7th prompt is Beauty in Time. For this one, I'm going to select, as I did in a previous prompt, 5 Weeks in a Bloom by Jules Verne, just because this was, I think, mid to late 1800s. I don't remember exactly. It was probably mid 1800s. It's just like that time, just, there was a lot of beauty in the flying over Africa in that time. Next book is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. This book actually presents a dark view of the future, but it is time travel, and there is some beauty in the future amongst the darkness. The next is Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. This book spanned a large period of time, and locations such as New Orleans and France. Anne Rice does a great job describing, especially New Orleans since she's from there. And in all her books set in New Orleans, she just does a great job just describing the vegetation, the old houses, and I just think there's a beauty and time in that. And another book which I mentioned previously is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. Just there's the time some of the story is set, there is some beauty in that, and time is involved as an element in it. The 8th prompt is Beauty and Catharsis. My first selection is Hannah and Jacob and Soulmates by Susan Lee. Both of these characters have to go through a lot, and they learn a lot about themselves and each other, and they come out, I think, more positive views on things and understanding themselves and each other better. So I think that's cathartic. The next is The Music of Bees by Eileen Garvin, another book I mentioned previously. The 3 main characters in this book, they're all damaged, but they form a found family, and they work through some things, and by the end of the book you know that things are looking better for them, and you think their future is pretty bright. The next character is Zayamara in The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, another book I mentioned before. She is a teenager, starts the book the summer before her senior year, then goes into it. There's a lot of things with her family and herself, her self-view, and things that she works through. And by the end of it, I believe she has come out the other end, viewing herself more positively and just having a brighter future because of what she went through and what she conquered. The final characters for this prompt are Stella and Michael and the Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong. Both of them have a lot of difficulty in their life. Stella she's autistic, and it's not something she wants to acknowledge, and she has to work through a lot of stuff, and Michael has a lot of family trauma. So they work through a lot of stuff themselves and with each other. And at the other end, I think as I've said, a lot of these, I think their future is brighter than it was before. So I think that was cathartic for them. The 9th prompt is Tag Others. I did look in, as far as I know, no one I'm tagging has done this tag before. Apologies if you have and I didn't see it, or you do it after I record this video. But I'm tagging the following people: John at Disquiet and Dragons -LH3ZM, Suey at Suey's Book Banter, Nix at Nixreads, Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, Smiti at Books Smitten, Kayla V at Reading with Kayla V, Justin at TriumphalReads, Milena at Milena Milano 8833, Fred at Read by Fred, Reney and Raina at Beyond Books -WT5IT, and of course it's only if you would like to do this tag, but I found it quite a challenging one. And also, anyone watching this video, if I didn't tag you, please consider yourself tagged if you like to do this video. If you'd like to do this tag, please do so. And anybody I tagged or anybody watching, like to do a video of your own, or if you don't do that or you prefer not to, please reply to one or more of these prompts in my comments. I'd be interested in reading your responses. I hope you're having a wonderful reading week, and I hope you're having a wonderful week in general. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, please hit the bell to get notified when I upload future videos.